Welcome to Macon Memories, Randolph-Macon Oral History Project. Today is May the 28th, 2008, and today I'm speaking with Dal Wooten and Ritchie Watson.
I'm Ritchie Watson. I'm A.G. Ingram Professor of English, and I joined the faculty at Randolph-Macon College in 1970. I'm retiring at the end of this year, 2008.
I'm Dal Wooten. In 1958, I was hired as a one-year replacement for Bill McElwain. I stayed for 40 years. For the first 3 years, I taught 3 comp classes and 2 sophomore literary classes each semester. I mentioned the fact I taught 3 comp classes each semester because when you talk about English, you have to be concerned at the college level with writing and literature. The writing in many ways is a burden that you bear for being there. I was interested in, as I was putting together some comments for this, it dawned upon me that Stanford Webb, who was here when I first came, was the last English teacher not to teach composition. I don't believe there's been another one since then. The composition, again, is the burden to bear, and I think he wisely decided not to do it. He even appointed a director of composition, Richard Haskett, first, and then later Dal Wooten. I think it was to get rid of the composition altogether was his goal. I was hired, interestingly enough, without a campus visit. I actually thought when I first heard from Randolph-Macon, I was hearing from the Women's College in Lynchburg. I assume Ashland was a suburb of Lynchburg. I was surprised when I got here. It adds an interesting twist to it. And the other college now has changed its name from Randolph-Macon to Randolph College. I'm glad I think I had the right Randolph-Macon.
I think you chose the right one.
Yes. The classes, when I first taught, were mostly male. We had some women day students. The males were dressed in coats and ties, as were the male teachers. It was a tradition at Randolph-Macon and pretty well followed. Some of the students would forget their ties, so I actually took ties to class to furnish a tie in case they happened to forget. And I use that word loosely. The first semester I taught in Fox Hall in Smithy, which was math building connected to the science building, and I also taught a class in Pace Hall, which is now Pace Olmsted. It's now an art museum instead of a teaching building. We taught in short all over campus. We had our office in Fox Hall. There were 4 of us to a single office. Rooms were at a premium. Teaching space was very, very limited. And it was in 1965 that we would move into Copley Hall. And we was, for the first time, actually had individual offices. When I first came here, we were in Fox Hall. There were 4 of us to a single office. That gives you an idea of what it was like when I first came here. We were divided into academic groups. The group we belonged to was Language and Literature. That was the central organization on campus. The meetings of the divisions were more important than the faculty meetings. The faculty had not really taken over at that point. Of course, there were individual faculty meetings for the different classes, but in time, the faculty would become the significant organization on campus. That was not true in the beginning. You had one good thing about the divisions, it gave you more of a mixture of, we were with the literary people, literature people, as well as the language people, as well as the Bible. You had much more of a mixture on campus than you would have later on. The faculty would tend to divide itself a little later. It was, in time, of course, the most significant gathering. What were the major issues of the faculty at the time is a question that was brought up. Of course, there was the usual concern with carrying out the mission of the college. That was money was a very real concern. I'll ask Ritchie, did you feel that when you first came here?
Oh, Lord, yes. When I came in 1970, now, English department had a home by that time in Haley, and we all had offices. I don't know what I'd have thought if I'd been sharing an office with 3 other people. But financial exigency was in the air when I came here. Yeah. And the future of the college, I remember in the early 1970s, seemed rather bleak. And I arrived in 70, the last year of the single sex of the men's college that the second year, wasn't it, 1971, 72,
yeah.
We admitted women, a remarkably fine class of women. And since my experience was coeducational on the undergraduate level, I thought it was just a great thing for the college to do. It seemed to me in 70 when I came here, morale looked pretty low, and I was just a mere instructor. But I remember being feeling anxious about where I was. When women came the following year, the morale just really picked up in a lot of ways. We had so many of those early women still are wonderful students, but they were remarkably fine class of women who came in 71, 72. I'm sort of getting off I can't even remember what you asked me, but I mean, I was here in time for the coeducation, and I think it was looking at Randolph College now from the perspective of 2008, it just seems to me we made the right decision. It was a crucial decision for the college, and they, of course, continued along the single-sex path, and it's not been such a happy outcome for them. Well, the women's college was considered distinctly better than the men's college. I remember that. I came here, my advisor in Chapel Hill got a phone call saying there's a vacancy down here at Randolph-Macon College. Do you have anybody who might, want the job? I had an offer from a college in North Carolina named Elon, and this one was from a Virginia school. And I remember, I think perhaps the women's college and the men's college, that distinction wasn't altogether clear to me, but I remember looking at the statistics for Randolph-Macon and discovering they had a Phi Beta Kappa chapter, and for me that was the Elon didn't, and I thought, well, certainly if I'm going to a small liberal arts school, I want to be at a place that's good enough, obviously, to have nourished Phi Beta Kappa chapter. So I drove down here from Chapel Hill and back in one day and interviewed and got offered the job, and that was that. I mean, the job, the process of filling jobs was much more informal than it is today. I remember driving after the interviews and coming out of town. I was driving up Railroad Avenue or Center Street. I don't know why, but I decided I would drive through the town to get a look at it. And I remembered as I was driving through town, it just was very interesting that, I don't know, when I was 10 years old, my parents had taken me and my brother on a trip to New York City from Wilmington, North Carolina by train, and we'd gone by sleeper. It was a big adventure. And I remember waking up. It was a Friday morning. We'd been on the train all night. I think it had stopped in Rocky Mount, and we'd switched. They put added cars, and we went on up. And I woke up and I lifted up the shade on the Pullman window, and I saw these beautiful houses floating, just floating past. I remember that very clearly and thinking, well, where is this? This is just a beautiful little place. And as I was driving through the town that afternoon, I realized this was the very, very same town. I called my mother that evening. We were Presbyterians, and my mother was very Presbyterian, and she said, this is this is something that is significant. This is the job you want to take. There's some sort of providence involved here. And so I thought, well, she might be right. And turned out she was. I came, I stayed, and I had a very happy and productive time here. And if my mother were alive, I'd probably tell her, you were right. There was a kind of providence involved here. That's way off. Go back to what...
Well, one thing, we mentioned the 60s and early 70s. The pre-co-ed days, there was a considerable unity among the faculty, though, and the students, particularly the young faculty. We attended many of the fraternity functions. KA House came almost to be a second home for me.
You were a fraternity advisor, weren't you?
Yes, I actually became a Theta Chi at Randolph-Macon. Went through the initiation with definite limitations. I wasn't going to open myself to that fall, but I did become a Theta Chi. There was a considerable unity. I think...
the climate has changed, so now
it's
that
changed.
would be considered very unwise,
yes.
don't you think? Although at the time it was considered quite
It was
all
quite
right.
acceptable.
Yeah.
Yes, we were. We also, under Dr. Moreland, we were sacred in the classroom as a teacher.
He did give you the...
Yeah, he did not interfere at all. We were on the edge of change, but the change was not there. It had not come. I was thinking of change that would come in the faculty meetings. The students voted once. They asked that we, as the faculty, allow them to not attend classes, to put on a rally for peace, the war. And two of the teachers, Dal Wooten and McGraw-Page, voted against it. And it came out in the Yellow Jacket that all the faculty supported the cause for the students except those two shits, Munyon and Wooten. They claimed at first it was in a letter someone sent into the Yellow Jacket, but eventually proven that the editor had written the letter.
Who was the editor?
I can't recall his name. That marked a change in the outside issues came in for the first time, really.
In the late 60s.
The faculty enlarged its concern, and I thought that was a marked moment that I recall, particularly if someone was kind enough to bring the Yellow Jacket to class to the next faculty meeting to make sure everybody knew about it. And of course, those two shits were there for the meeting. But things, it would change. Change would continue on into the later years. I might get Professor Watson to mention some of the changes that would take place in the curriculum. There were courses that would come in that were of different type.
Well, the English department today kind of reflects in a modest way the changes in the discipline throughout the nation. I mean, obviously, when I came, the curriculum looked pretty much like it had for the last 20 years, with a strong emphasis upon English, a much less strong emphasis upon American. That reflected the inclinations and biases of the 40s, 50s, and early 60s. Conventional period courses designed along chronology with emphasis upon the standard great text. And now if you look at what the department offers. It's the focus is much more diverse. You have third world literature, women's writing, thematic sorts of courses, critical courses, upper level courses in criticism, film, and all sorts of things that in 1970 one might not necessarily have anticipated. Otherwise, though, I think the major has remained pretty consistent in size over the last 38 years. Class sizes have remained, pretty much the same. There are lots of things that remain the same. Student faculty contact in the department is very informal, very productive, and always has been. What else? We're
Well, I
moving back.
checked. We benefited considerably from the coeducational movement.
Boy, did we? Yeah.
With the women in our particular major, I think I mentioned to you, I checked the roll for a class I had back shortly after women came here, and I had 21 students in a Renaissance drama class, and it proved in there 17 of them were girls, females, and 4 of them were males. That was not an uncommon situation, and we benefited greatly from the course. In later years, more males have turned to English too. There's more of a balance, but it helped us. I think it's one of the great changes that have come to Randolph-Macon in bringing in the women.
When did you become chair? What year did you assume the chairmanship of the department?
It was, I was chairman for 23 years.
So 70.
74.
74.
Yeah. It was, and I thought it made a considerable difference. It was English 316 restoration drama that I was when I checked the roll. I enjoyed I felt too that in many ways bringing in the co-eds moved the social life back to the campus. The students had gotten so they were leaving to date in other places, and the social life returned. And I simply liked having the female in the class. I thought it was
They're still tend to be our strongest students.
Yes.
Not always, but generally speaking, we have really benefited from that decision. And I might also add, it needs to be said, the department benefited greatly from your stewardship for 23 years, from 74 to 97. I mean, that's a long tenure, and it indicates the success and the wisdom with which you guided our department as it became an entirely different department. I mean, I was here in 1970, so I was actually watching the department as it changed for the better, with, I think, with wonderful hires. We were all male in 1970. There wasn't a hint of a woman teacher anywhere around. And under Dal, we began moving toward a more representative department in terms of
when I left,
male,
it was clearly
female.
Divided between
Right.
male and female.
Exactly. And we were also more research-oriented in terms of our activities outside the classroom. That became a component of what our department does. And I think you deserve a lot of credit for moving the department that way.
One of the problems, of course, we must address as a small college department, keeping good teachers. We simply cannot compete in many ways with the universities. The teaching load has to be different when you in college level. The composition is a very time-demanding course to teach, and you have to compete salary-wise. You simply cannot compete. We were simply lucky Dr. Watson got married and lives in Ashland and wants to stay here. That was
It's the center of the universe. Where else would you want to be?
the center of the universe, and I'm glad he decided to stay here. But it is a real problem, and I don't know how colleges can begin to. They cannot compete with the universities in terms of the teaching loads and in terms of salary. This is.
Although our teaching load has, you were teaching 10 courses when
Yes,
you came.
yes.
By the time I came here in 1970, the teaching load was 9.
Yeah.
It had dropped very modestly, 4, 1, 4, including 2 sections of comp, both semesters. And I look back on that and wonder how in the world you had 4 different preparations. Well, no, 3. 3 preparations, 4 classes per semester. You taught upper level, you taught the survey sophomore level, you taught those 2 comp classes, and they were not small. They were, a little larger than they are today. That was a lot. And then somehow you were able to get us down to 7.
So,
That's right?
yes.
And that's a little more manageable. And now I think it's 6. And for most members of our department, and that puts us in line with some good college. I mean, we finally managed over the years to keep that teaching load from being so punishing.
Yeah.
Again, I think you deserve a lot of credit
Thank
there.
you, but that's a big problem still when
Yeah, it remains.
when you compete with the universities. When I first came here, I said I taught 5 classes at Macon each semester, which is true, but I also taught 2 night classes at VCU, which was then
Supplement your
RPI,
income.
and I ran a laundromat. So I was trying to live off $4,000 a year, and even in those times it was a
4,000.
problem.
Well, mine wasn't much better when I came here.
I know.
It got better.
I hate to admit that larger teaching load, but it was a problem. And
In spite of the teaching load, when I came here in 70, there was a fair amount, there was a fund of good feeling for Earl Moreland, who had just retired. Moreland was kind of he was very much a presence. He was in the library just about every day, I remember, for some years.
yeah.
There were stories of remarkable, funny stuff. He was a character.
I know it.
He was a character, and you were aware of him right away after you came here. They were wonderful. I don't know if they're apocryphal or whether they're true, but there's one about Moreland in an expansive mood talking about getting off a plane that had been on a particularly rocky journey. Everybody thought the plane was going down. It made it. And he got off the plane, he said, and he felt like falling to his knees and kissing the good old terracotta. I remember that's one of the first stories. He tended to get his words kind of. You have some good Moreland ones too.
You have to tell the story when he was introducing the visitor in the assembly, and
some guy from Northwestern.
he said, "My dear friend, long time friend," and the man got up and said, "Thank you, Dr. Morehouse." It didn't faze him, though.
No.
He would tell you later that his name had been changed if necessary. That was the moment in the faculty, Bruce English, who was secretary for the faculty, and one night he decided to take down everything Moreland said word by word, and then he read it back to us. It was filled with so many exaggerations that even Moreland blushed.
However, he knew how to positively reinforce his faculty. He gave you that sense of being able to teach whatever you
yes,
wanted to
yes.
do. He would stand behind you there.
Yes.
And he was very complimentary of the efforts of his teachers, I've heard. I missed that when I first came.
He's standing in the right place. His statue's right out on campus, looking
Right.
at what's going on, but not interfering.
Right.
He was very, very good president in that respect. He saw Randolph-Macon too with great promise that money was very short. He continued to believe. He didn't despair. You never saw that in him for one moment. Being president of Randolph-Macon was the great thing in his life, and that's the way he lived his life. He died one evening while he was saying his prayers, and
That's right.
I'm sure he was praying for Randolph-Macon. He wanted to live on campus, but he eventually lived off campus.
But not far.
Yes. They asked some of the comments in the notes that we were working from, what was your most satisfying experience at Randolph-Macon? There have been a number of them.
You tell.
I had to, my 23 years as chairman was a memorable experience. It's funny, I didn't know I was coming to Randolph-Macon, and it's been my entire life.
How about, yeah.
Came for 1 year and spent 40 years, 40 very promising
I had
years.
a 1-year appointment, yeah.
Yeah.
I think since I'm retiring this year, it seems to me that it's the students. It's amazing how many emails I've gotten from former students who've heard about my retirement. I just think that's remarkable, especially in light of the fact that I went to a much larger university. Of course, I loved it, but I don't think I ever thought about telling a teacher, that I'd enjoyed his course or been inspired by it. I guess I thought it would be perceived as, brown-nosing or something like that. And I never kept in touch with most of my teachers at Carolina, but here at Randolph-Macon, your students do. And yesterday I had this great email from, do you remember Ted Leather? Do you remember him?
Yeah.
He was a French major, but he took English courses. Here out of the blue comes this email from New York City, where he lives. I hadn't seen him in 24 years. That's a really nice thing, and it's something that a college the size of Randolph-Macon can do and does do very well. The students, especially the good ones, they're not necessarily the most academically talented, but they're the ones who still remember your courses and tell you. Ted Leather even gave me the list of papers he had written for me. I didn't remember the courses or the papers, but he said, here's what I wrote about in this course, here's what I wrote about. That's really quite a remarkable thing. And it's one really good aspect of the culture here at Randolph-Macon, that bond you do forge with your students over the years.
I agree with you. I see them. I saw, not long ago, I saw a former student at Shea Max, the restaurant in Richmond, and he said, you gave me a D at Randolph-Macon, but I still like you.
I know.
He said, I guess what I did, I went to VCU to take the course over again, and I had you again. I got another D, but I still love you.
He's very forgiving.
Very, very, very forgiving.
I mean, when I look about how my standards were when I first came, I really was a lot tougher than I am now. I think no question about it.
Yeah.
And when people, sometimes they'll come up, you gave me my only B of this. I say, well, you should be taking me now. You just got me at the wrong moment. Lord.
I see them enjoy at the Iron Horse. I see so many former students. I saw 2 girls from class 74 the other night down there. Sheila Thompson and Victoria. I can't think of her last name. Yes, it's been. many good moments.
Many good moments indeed. And we've been through a series of presidents. I didn't have Moreland, but he was so much around. I feel like almost he was part of my experience. Then Luther White, Moreland, then Luther White,
yes,
Liddell Payne, Rusty Martin, and now the president. President. It's quite a few. Okay. Anything? Is that enough?
I'd like to hear you remember about the library.
Oh Lord, we do need to talk about Flavia.
Yes, I was. When they moved the library, I was part of it formed a chain of faculty to move the books, and I recall that quite well. I used to have a Christmas party for the faculty, English faculty and others, each Christmas, and I had it for 12 years, and I finally was not going to have it for 1 year, and I got a call from Flavia, "Are we having a party?"
That's right. When you think about the size of the staff in the library when we came, I mean, there was Flavia, there was Mary Ruth. Seemed like Sarah Wright. Was Sarah Wright?
Yeah.
It was such a small, she just practically ran this library single-handed.
Yeah.
And what's remarkable about her, not that just she was had a first-rate mind and was extremely intelligent, but she loved books. She loved literature. Yes. And, in the days when specialties have become so specialized, she was just a beautifully educated person and a great librarian. And she was your friend, too.
Yes.
We'd have lunch, or I remember Flavia would always, she was rather demanding. Her standards were pretty high. And I remember when I would order food at the, the Townhouse, that was the place where we ate a lot back in those days out on US 1. She'd notice if I didn't order a green vegetable and tell me I had been a little deficient in my ordering. And I respected her very much. I respected her opinion. She had very strong opinions about pink dogwoods, which she thought were garish. And she was a remarkable, truly, truly remarkable person and a wonderful librarian. And she managed this library on a shoestring, I think. The budgets were mighty lean in a lot of those years. And then she saw it through its expansion, right? And then she retired.
I think she turned it into the fine institution it is today. I think that's largely her. It's her doings. And she left a mark behind that she was dearly missed by those who have been here for many years.
There are not many people, librarians or otherwise, that you can come in and say, I want to order this book. Oh, yes, I've read that. And you'd have a discussion about the book. Oh. She was very well and thoroughly read. She was quite wonderful. What else you want to talk about? What else you want us to talk about? What? How did the faculty respond to women? We've already said, most of us, I think. Randolph Macon.
How we did what?
That transition from male to female was as easy as as you can imagine. And I think it's partly due to the credit to the college that the transition, you think of what's happening down at Randolph College. Yeah. Well, it's different, of course. But the integration was so smooth, and those women students were so good. I think everybody, it's like within a few years, no one even talked too much about the fact that we'd abandoned our single-sex status. I think that's one of the signal triumphs of Randolph-Macon in the time I've been here is the smooth and very successful way we went from single-sex to co-ed.
It was such a positive experience in that male and female students competed with each other. That helped considerably in class. It was.
Of course, B.J. Seymour was our Dean of Women.
Yes.
And she was a part of, I think, of the success of it. And
we had always had some female students, day students, local students. It was not a completely new experience, but it was a very positive one.
How does the campus look? We brought our friends over to show them the campus, and they were very impressed with the look of it. They're going up to their reunion at Dartmouth, and they were talking about how well maintained the campus is now. That's gone back and forth. When Liddell was here, there was an emphasis on the look of things, and then Rusty didn't pay so much attention to that. Bob Lindgren is now bringing back that emphasis on appearance, and but the campus itself hasn't changed so much that you'd go here and say, well, I don't recognize the place, like you do larger schools. Like when I go back to Chapel Hill, there's so much building and so much. I mean, it's the same place, kind of, but it's very, very different looking. Here at Randolph-Macon, of course, with the size and with the more gradual nature, I think the campus has changed relatively little, in spite of the fact that there are quite a few new buildings. It doesn't seem so different. And now they're spiffed up those motel dorms, which always looked just perfectly hideous, I thought. They were there when I got here. Hadn't been there long, though. And now they've, I call them, greeked them up and made them look very presentable, I think. The college, the look of the school is just really very nice now.
Copley Hall needs remodeling and needs considerable work. In fact, they are planning on adding to Copley, a building about the size of the present one.
Where? In the back?
It'd be built in the front of Copley.
Going over toward the planetarium?
Coming toward the campus, the mid-heart of the campus. And they hope the buildings will face each other. It took us on a tour. I'm on the Board of Associates, and it took us on a tour of Copley, and it's in need of, particularly laboratories need improvement. That's one of the main
We thought it's needed improvement for the last 40 years.
Oh, yes. But I was taken on a tour of the building when they first opened it, and they showed us what a modern, new, nice building it is, and I've been around long enough to go back through to say how desperately we need to remodel it.
Well, that will certainly be a good thing. If they get that project underway.
Any final thoughts?
I've enjoyed it.
And so have I.
To stay at Randolph-Macon.
It's nice to retire and look back and not feel bitter or unhappy or like you've been shortchanged or disappointed. It's really very nice. It's a very nice feeling. I mean, not that I didn't feel underpaid, and certainly the early years overworked. I mean, it's not a perfect environment, but you look at it, and especially in later years, the support for research that the Craigie money has given for those of us who are interested in research and writing, that's a very fine thing, and it really distinguishes Randolph-Macon from a lot of small schools. That ought to be mentioned too, because this latest book I've published, I used 5 Craigie grants in 5 different summers to go to collections, archival collections. I could never have done that, never even thought of doing that otherwise. So the support for research here is, and that sort of got going in the 80s or 90s? 80s, but it really sort of got going in the 90s. And it's been a wonderful thing and a wonderful recruiting tool for new people who are interested in research, and so we need to mention that too.
if we could adjust the teaching load to fit the need for research, that would be that would compensate for not being able to compete salary-wise. We need to look at every opportunity we have to substitute something nice for something a little better that we cannot have. That's what it amounts to. Recruiting is a very important part of the college, but I've enjoyed my stay.
And maintaining the quality of our faculty. Now that I'm seeing these emails from the students,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm sure everybody gets them, it's really important. It's really important that the college be able to maintain and attract good teachers and good research teachers,
Yeah.
teachers who both teach and develop their special interest. Students know that, they're aware of it, and that's the key to the survival of a school like this. A happy, productive faculty, you know, doing a good job in the classroom. We continue that, I think we're going to be okay.
Thank you very much.